The Solar Podcast is brought to you by Continental Energy Solutions. I'm Tim Montague, your host. Welcome to Solar Podcast Live. Today, solar performance monitoring made simple. My guest today is David Spieldenner. He is the product manager of a tool called PlantPredict, developed by First Solar, a true blue American solar panel manufacturer. Welcome to the show, David.
Thanks, Tim. Really glad to be here.
Really excited to have such a legendary company on the show. And I just want to let our viewers know that there was some really big news about your asset acquisition yesterday. So you can check that out. We're not going to dwell on that. But First Solar's business model has been a dynamic one over the years. You're very well known for thin film solar panels. It is a very different technology than traditional crystalline photovoltaics. And we're going to do a follow on with a colleague of yours to do a deep dive on that technology. But today we're going to talk about PlantPredict, which is a product that is near and dear to your heart and is disrupting the energy modeling for the PV industry. So, David, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came to First Solar, and how you came to PlantPredict.
Sure, Tim. And the timing of that announcement is actually perfect for what we're going to be talking about today. And the reason why is because First Solar for many years have been the largest solar developer in the United States. We've developed more solar than just about anybody, and a big part of that is because of the software that we use. The systems and the processes that we have in play allow us to develop large gigawatts of solar and do it in a way that we're able to make money. And I think that that's something that's really important. And let me take a few steps back and just tell you a little bit about where I've come from. So born and raised here in the Midwest. So Tim, you and I we're big fans of the Midwest and solar in the Midwest. And so I started my career at another good company out of the Midwest, Procter and Gamble, and then transitioned over to the automotive industry, as we were talking about earlier, with Dana Corporation, and spent really the beginning of my career at these Fortune 500 companies. And I wanted a chance to go to a company that was small, privately owned, a real startup experience. And so I went to First Solar, and that was back in 2006. I've been with First Solar now going on 15 years. And when I joined First Solar, it was pre-IPO. It was a relatively small company, but it stayed a small company for about 6 months. We went public about 6 months after I joined and began on this really rapid expansion process that has brought us to where we are today at over 6 gigawatts of solar panel manufacturing capacity. During the beginning of my career at First Solar, so for the first 6 years of my career, I was on the manufacturing side. I spent 4 of those years, the title was manufacturing solution manager, MES solution manager. And so my responsibility was building the manufacturing system that still runs the factories today. And so I guess it's like 9 years ago now, I made a move out to Arizona where our corporate headquarters is. And that's when I got involved in our development and EPC business. So I ran the IT organization for our EPC division is what I did for 8 years. And when I got out there, my whole attitude was it's just like manufacturing, just you do it in the desert. So a lot of the processes are the same. Well, I found out really fast that it's nothing like manufacturing. It's quite a bit different. And all the guys that I worked with got really annoyed by that kind of analogy because it's radically different. You don't have good network connectivity. You have, if you have any network connectivity, you have very little control over things like the weather and all that stuff. So it's a radically different experience to try to build solar. And I think that you definitely understand that. Manufacturing is a very controlled environment, whereas construction, it's all about being able to react to change and be able to be agile and on your feet, make decisions, overcome obstacles, be able to do all that stuff. So I did that for 8 years, and around the midway point, so after a few years of doing it, First Solar had started off with a really large portfolio of projects to construct. And we did that through a couple acquisitions. We bought the pipeline of OptiSolar and NextLight. And so we had a pretty good chunk of work to do right in the beginning. And then around the midpoint, we started to run out of projects from those portfolio acquisitions. And we really needed, as a development company and as a construction company, to figure out how to win business. And so being the IT guy that I am, and having this long experience in software development, I wanted to help out. I wanted to figure out if there's ways that we could contribute from a software standpoint to really help the company out. And so I began on this quest to understand the bid proposal preparation process. And I was horrified by what I saw. What I saw was an RFP would come out, and we would be preparing to put out a proposal. And so we'd go to our layout team, and the layout team was way backlogged. They had a really long queue of work to develop the layout. And so they would get a layout done in roughly 2 to 4 weeks. Mind you, this is a while back, but I think a lot of large developers can appreciate that it takes a little bit of time to work up the layout. Then once you have your layout, it would then get handed over to our performance and prediction team, who would work up the energy prediction, our cost estimating team to work up the cost estimate, scheduling team to work up the P6 schedule. And then that would all get pulled together and handed off to the project finance team. And the project finance team would run all the numbers through their model and come up with a PPA price that we would be willing to put into the bid. All that would take around 2 months to put all that together. At which point we would find out that we were missing something. We maybe didn't have the best price, or we didn't have the most optimal solution or maybe the customer's requirements changed. So we'd go right back to the very beginning of the process and start all over with the layout and move through that process. Not efficient enough. There was no way that we needed to be much better with our first proposal. We needed to have an optimized approach with the very first proposal. And so we started looking at ways we could streamline this process through software. And what happened is we created a product called PlantDesign. You're probably like, what the heck? Like, we're here to talk about PlantPredict. Well, PlantPredict was going on in the background. So we had created PlantPredict right around the same time that I stepped into that role. I helped with the initial funding request for PlantPredict, and we created PlantPredict because we had a fundamental issue with selling our modules. And that issue was PV-Syst was not recognizing the spectral response of our technology appropriately. So we had lobbied with PV-Syst for a long time to try to get them to recognize spectral response, and we were struggling to get them to incorporate that into their software. So the whole adage that, if you can't get somebody to do it for you, then sometimes you have to do it yourself. So we created the PlantPredict product so that our customers could do the modeling of our module technology that we needed. And so PlantPredict still was important in the plant design world because it provided the heart and soul of the proposal, the energy prediction. But we created a tool that would do the layouts, do cost estimating, do scheduling, and then ultimately have the project finance model incorporated into it. And during that time, this tool became a really powerful force within our development business, and it became kind of the collaborative tool that everybody worked off of. And so it was a really powerful tool for the development business, and something that I think is responsible, at least at some extent. I don't want to overplay it by any means, because there's so much that goes into development, but I think the tool was important in First Solar's success as a developer. Well, here we are about a year ago, and First Solar announced that we were going into a strategic analysis of our development business, and First Solar has been doing some consolidation here recently. And so we looked at the software platform that we had, and we said, this is something that's really been helpful to us. We think it's valuable in the industry. Let's take what we've done with PlantDesign and let's offer it to the industry in a way that our customers can use it, the industry can use it, because we recognize that we got to continue to drive costs down in the industry, but we can't just keep doing it through the components. You can't just keep making modules cheaper. You can't keep making inverters cheaper. You can't keep making racking cheaper. While those things will get cheaper over time, we're starting to get to that tail of the cost reduction curve where things are starting to flatten out. And so the way that I see over the next 10 years, we drive serious cost reduction in the utility scale solar industry is stuff that people have been saying for a long time in the residential world is you got to reduce those soft costs. You've got to design optimal power plants that use that equipment optimally so that you get a really well-designed and really well-built power plant to maximize the value out of that equipment. And so we made the decision that we were going to take the most valuable capabilities that we had developed in that PlantDesign, which is just a proprietary First Solar only platform. And we're going to start taking it to the industry in the form of PlantPredict Premium, which launched in September. And that was our first version of PlantPredict that was revenue generating. And it's got it's a freemium subscription model. And we've had a tremendous success with the launch of that product. And we're real excited about where we are today. Having launched it back in September and sitting here in January, it's been much more successful than I think a lot of people expected, even myself. And so we're really happy with how the market has responded to it. But it answered one of the things that I'd wondered is how hungry is the industry for better software? And that answer is pretty clear. The industry needs better software, and the industry is really hungry for it. And so it's pretty exciting.
You know, we forget that time is our most valuable asset. And when there are tools and technologies that slow us down, that comes at a tremendous cost. The opportunity cost of having dysfunctional tools is ginormous. And sometimes the construction trades can put up with some amazing pain points for way too long, in my opinion. I come from outside, and so it's been very eye-opening to see what we actually put up with on a daily basis. And one of those tools, honestly, David, is PVSys now, that we are forced to use by our developer partners. And these are, you know, grade A, very experienced solar developers using a tool that is lagging by at least a decade, in my opinion, from state of the art. And so there just so clearly is an opportunity for more and better modeling tools. So you mentioned something, though, early in your introduction about spectral response. I want to zero in on that for a second because, you know, at the end of the day, a solar array is measured by money in, energy out, right? You're buying a facility, you're designing and building a facility that is producing electricity. kWh is how we measure that. And there has to be a credible correspondence between what you're saying you're going to build and what the facility actually produces. And it can go both ways, right? The tools can underpredict or overpredict. The tools and models
Right.
can underpredict and overpredict. And it is very easy in the solar industry to skew your results one way or the other to make things seem different than they're going to be. But thin film is unique. It responds to sunlight differently than crystalline technology. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So you hit right on a real hot button for me there, Tim. You know, I have a lot of respect for PVSys and for what they've done. You know, the solar industry wouldn't be what it is today if it wasn't for the work that those guys did, the research that they did in the early days, and to create a credible model that the industry can use. I mean, that's fundamental to getting us to where we are today. The problem is when we set out to address our biggest concern, which is that spectral response capability, which is now in PVSys, by the way. So that's really good news. And in a way, PlantPredict was successful. If for nothing else, we got PVSys to put that in. But when we started out on that journey, we said, let's not just create PVSys with spectral response. Let's address all the things that we don't like about PVSys. And so we one of the things that a lot of people have tried to do, and we tried to do it as well, is you try to run PVSys on a server and find a way that you can programmatically reach out to PVSys and automate the running of it. And PVSys tells you right up front that they don't support that. Like, you shouldn't do that. So we said, let's build PlantPredict to be API first. And API stands for Application Programming Interface. And when I say API first, we expose our prediction API. And it's one of the most powerful things about PlantPredict is you can be a software development company. I know you had my friends at Anderson Optimization on your podcast. So we want to be the prediction engine of the solar software industry. And so we expose our API. We let people call programmatically our prediction engine, and we'll run a prediction for you and pass you back the results. It's built in a way that modern software is built. Modern software works around these APIs. And if you talk to the Helioscopes, the Auroras, all these companies, they're building their software in the cloud with an API-based pattern underwriting it. And so we said, let's address these issues. API first, we build it in the cloud. I hate whenever I have to download a new version of desktop-based software. It's very annoying. With PlantPredict, we do monthly releases. You get the latest software right there in your browser. You don't have to install anything. It runs on the Google Chrome browser. And then we said, let's try to make it easy to use. One thing that it's a double-edged sword. Let me just put it this way. It's very strategic that PVSys is hard to use. And the thing that's strategic about it is you become an expert in PVSys and you can profit off of that expertise. So there's a whole industry of people that are PVSys experts that sell their services. And because PVSys is hard to learn, those people are able to make money. But you know what? That's not good for the industry. That's unnecessary cost in the industry when you have to turn to an expert to get this kind of analysis. And so by making the user interface easier to use, it becomes something that lowers that bar. And we ultimately want to take the engineering expertise that goes into an energy simulation and abstract that complexity, make the user interface easy to use. It's still going to be a very sophisticated, highly engineered prediction, but it's going to be the kind of thing that even a software guy like myself can run. And so it's something that I think is really important, that it's got to be easy, it's got to be fast, cloud-based. That's the way that the software industry is going, and that's the way that PlantPredict is. So you talked about accuracy. So this is something else that I think is really important. We're talking about forecasts here. We're predicting the future. A good analogy is the weather forecasters just last week were telling me that we'd have 5 to 8 inches of snow outside my window. And you probably got more snow than we did here in Ohio because the storm kind of hit a little bit more out west. But what do I have right now? Rain. And so it was funny when the forecaster was talking about it, he says, this is one model. One model says you're going to get 5 to 8 inches. There's other models, and we're looking at all these models to help you with your forecast. So when you're forecasting, what's important is that you have some understanding of the model risk you're taking on. If you have one model that you're using, you don't have a very diversified model set. And so you're taking on a tremendous amount of model risk. That's the reason why forecasters don't bank their weather forecast off of just one model. They run a few different models, and then they look at the differences in those models. And from that, they come up with a forecast that they think is best, because nobody can tell the future. PVSys is not a divinely inspired product. It does not actually tell you what the future holds, as is PlantPredict. PlantPredict doesn't either. But you can actually get 2 different models, and you can use the outputs of those models. They're similar models. You're going to find very similar results, but you're going to get just a different view that may help you understand the risk of your project. And that's ultimately what project development is all about, is risk management. So we all know about diversification when it comes to our stock portfolio. So there's value in diversification when you're talking about managing your risk as a solar developer, looking at your pipeline. So a lot of our customers use PVSys and PlantPredict, and then they get two views of what the future might hold. And from that, they're able to have a better understanding of what the risk is. And I think that that's really important in the industry.
So what is it going to take for the powers that be, the banks, the financiers, to begin to recognize that there are other credible tools? Because it does seem from a distance, albeit that PVSys has a death grip on the modeling industry. Do you have a sense of what the path is to cracking that nut? There's definitely a crack. I see an opening, and Dan Leary is a fan of this API first. I want to give a shout out to Dan, who came on the show with his tool called Dino Watts. He's very much in this space, and any any technology forward individual who looks at the PVSys approach versus the PlantPredict and others, it's like an immediate aha of, oh yeah, this is going to be simpler, faster, and more effective. Now, you also need that scientific credibility, right? That accuracy, that side by side comparison by a third party, and maybe we can get into that a little bit. But what is your sense of what is it going to take to have this breakthrough?
Yeah. So first off, the PlantPredict, I said this before, but I want to really emphasize it right now. PlantPredict's been under development now for 9 years. So it's been built and being used now for 9 years. And those first 8 years, we didn't charge anything for it. It's just recently that we rolled out the PlantPredict Premium and we started charging for it. Those 8 years were all about accuracy and bankability. We wanted to get a large enough user base that we could get a lot of cycles through on this tool. During those 8 years, although it was a free tool, it was used in the financing of over 1 gigawatt of solar. So it was accepted by banks already as the model for the financing of the power plant. Now, a lot of that's because of First Solar's clout as the developer, and a lot of that was First Solar developed projects. So it has been accepted by banks already, but the process, there's no like clearly defined route. What it is you're kind of just pushing through here. So we a few years ago, we made the effort and we made the investment to get some independent engineering reviews and get some papers from the likes of DNVGL, Black and Veatch. We got some independent reviews, and we have that information right in the actual tool, their assessment of the accuracy of the tool. So I think that's important. One thing that brings me a lot of comfort, so First Solar we're in the process of selling it, but we've developed the largest O&M business, utility scale O&M business in the country. And that O&M business has over 10 gigawatts of solar under management. It's way beyond 10 gigawatts at this point. It was 10 gigawatts back when I was still in the Tempe office. So, it's a huge, huge O&M business. And they use PlantPredict every month. They use PlantPredict to run their as-built model. And then they compare the as-built model to their actual model. And that helps them understand if there's issues with inverters or whatnot. And I love those guys, because if there was a problem with our model, they would let me know about it. And they're using this. So the First Solar O&M business was not just CAD-TEL technology. They had every technology under the sun. You don't get to the gigawatt level that they did without having all kinds of different inverters, different modules, different racking systems. So they had all these different variations. They were able to model all of them with PlantPredict and create their as-built model. And then every month they run a simulation and they compare it to actual results. And from there, they're able to understand if there's any problems with the power plant. And of course, if the first thing that they always check is the model running correctly. And once they're comfortable with that, then they assume that there's got to be some sort of a issue that needs to be addressed. So that process makes me very confident in the accuracy and the reliability of the model. So then it also comes, the more we have customers take the PlantPredict model to the bank and say, this is the model that we've worked up. I think that banks, we do have independent engineers and we do have banks that actually are subscribers to PlantPredict. So, and they want better software too. I think that when I talk about managing the risk, I think the bankers in the crowd are going to definitely understand what I'm talking about there. And they probably will say, yeah, we do take on a lot of model risk with our single model. And so having a couple different views, I think would help a bank very much understand what kind of risk they're dealing with. So I don't think there's a silver bullet answer to that, Tim. It's just going to take a lot of work, a lot of persistence. We gotta hold up our end of the bargain and make sure that we provide as accurate and as reliable of a software product as we can provide. And as long as you just keep pushing forward, I think that it's gonna work out, and we shall see. I think that we've got a really good foothold right now, and I think that we're making really good progress.
And we need to clarify something right out of the gate here, that the tool works with any kind of solar module, not just thin film. There was a question about how do you get access to PlantPredict? If you just go to plantpredict.com, you can sign up today. You can start modeling your projects. This is not a thin film centric technology.
No.
That was one of the catalysts, perhaps, of course, with the ideation of the tool to serve your needs as a developer or an EPC. But what is today is totally agnostic. So have no fear if you're not working with thin film. So this is just...
Can I speak in on that just real quick, Tim?
Yeah, sure.
One question that we get a lot of is around bifaciality, because first of all, it doesn't have a bifacial module. And so a lot of people would say that they just assume that PlantPredict doesn't do bifacial modeling. And that's completely untrue. We saw very early on that it was important to be able to model bifaciality. And so we've had bifaciality now for several years. I think it maybe even 2 or 3 years at this point. And the approach that we use is very similar to what PVSys uses. So if you're going to be running a model in PVSys and PlantPredict, you're going to get very similar results. Now, a little plug for, we're going to be doing a webinar in February. And the webinar is going to focus specifically on bifaciality and bifaciality in simulations. There was a technical paper that was published in November from the Technical University of Denmark. That was the paper was the result of a year-long study that they ran, where they were concerned about bifaciality in utility scale applications, because they talked about how there's a lot of data out there about bifacial modeling and bifacial actual results, but not a lot of that has been done at utility scale. It's usually focusing more around an individual module or a small residential sized system. And so they happen to have the horizontal trackers at their facility to be able to do a utility scale bifaciality analysis to understand bifacial gain. And they, unbeknownst to us, they didn't reach out to us. So this was kind of, I called it my Thanksgiving gift when they published this, because they chose PlantPredict as one of the models that they were going to analyze. They chose what they consider to be the 8 leading solar simulation software out there, and PlantPredict was one of them. And the results I thought were really, really fantastic. One of the things that they said that I think the industry has to be a little concerned about is that most of your solar simulation software are overly optimistic around bifacial gain. And so their results did show that. PlantPredict does come in a little more conservative, but what they found is that was more representative of actual results than what these other models were showing. And so one thing that pains me in this industry, and I've seen this with weather files, sometimes developers will go with whatever they think gives them the best the highest output. And that's a dangerous approach. So if you only use the weather file, that's going to give you the highest GHI, and it's going to get you the highest kilowatt hours, and therefore the lowest PPE, you may be taking on more risk than you want. And so it's not a bad thing. And so one of the things that I've had people tell me is they're like, I don't like how PlantPredict comes in lower than this other model. I say, hey, okay, I get that. Well, let me sit down and let me make sure you're running the model correctly. And we'll do that and help you through that. But then, it may be that you've got to have another perspective on what the actual performance of this power plant might be. Now, you could just reject that and go with the more optimistic approach, but at least you have some other perspective to work with here. So yes, bifaciality supported. We're very proud of our bifaciality modeling. I think it works well in the Technical University of Denmark. Their results, once again, this is not we didn't pay them to do this. They just did it on their own. And so we're really pleased with their results. It's very independent. We're going to have the lead author on a webcast to talk a little bit about their study, because I think it's really important for the industry to see, because the industry needs good data about this. And their report has really good data in my opinion. So we'll have them on to talk a little bit about that in a webcast that we'll be hosting here in February.
The other technology that I think we need to address head on is single axis trackers, because they are capturing now a lion's share of the large scale solar installations globally. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was at one point like a differentiator between some of the other tools that are out there. And there's, I'm a big fan of the solar software space, and we've got some really good tools that are emerging. And I think that this industry is going to go crazy over the next 5 years, and I'm really excited to be part of it. But first, PlantPredict has modeled single axis horizontal trackers really from the beginning, because it's fundamental to the utility scale business. In fact, First Solar had a tracker company at one point. So we did tracker manufacturing as well. We don't do that anymore. And there's some fantastic tracker companies out there. I love what's going on in that space. And we have good relationships with the leaders in that space. They're users of the software, and really good relationships with them. So we support all tracker models. We allow you to adjust the size. Now, one thing that one improvement we're going to make in the tool here is depending on the tracker that you have, there's some gaps and spacing that is not properly represented in the PlantPredict tool. So you do have to take that into consideration when you're doing your capacity analysis. We plan to address that here going up, but I still think when you're talking utility scale and large scale, I don't think there's anybody out there with a tool that's going to do as good of a job as what PlantPredict does at laying out horizontal trackers and then properly modeling it. We offer the ability to do time series data uploads, and so that's something that's been really popular. So if you buy one of these sophisticated tracking algorithms through the leading tracker manufacturers, you can actually model their sophisticated tracking algorithm using our time series technology, and I know that because they use it when they're doing their modeling. And so you can adjust your tracking angle through the time series upload. It's very powerful, very easy. You can download the template, fill it in with your model, and upload it, and then use it. And so yeah, we've got a very sophisticated tracker. We also support fixed tilt as well, but and specifically, like some people do rooftop modeling with PlantPredict. Although we don't really want to be a small scale solar model tool, because there's some really good ones out there on the market, and we feel like the niche that needs served is utility scale, and that's where we're focusing. People do rooftop models with our fixed tilt functionality, and so it works and works pretty well. So Yeah, we cover a lot of different aspects of the industry because we've had to. We've in the time that, yeah, I've been here 15 years now, but First Solar's been a pioneer and has been in the industry for a long time. We've seen a lot, and so everything that we see, we've had to find a way to do it in PlantPredict, and so it's very full function.
So I put on screen some value propositions that PlantPredict brings to the table. We've addressed some of these. I want to talk about speed because I am such a glutton for being efficient.
Sure.
You make the claim that you're 75% faster. How many tools have you compared PlantPredict against?
So that statistic is specifically around a comparison with PVSist. And so the way that we did that is we did a good old fashioned time study, and we had um, we had a power plant that we tried to model, and we did the full process in PVSist, and then we did it in PlantPredict and measured the time, and then we did it again, and then we kept doing it over and over again, and then logged the time between both of those tools. And what we found is that you were able to get to the actual prediction results um, 75% faster through PlantPredict than you were able to with PVSys. So, that's the basis of that. Now, that is not taking into consideration the API that I've already talked about. So, if you are an API user and you have your optimization process scripted out, like we have one customer that runs 10,000 predictions a month. They have a fully scripted out optimization process that every power plant that they're looking at goes through this process, and their performance engineers basically set up the script, let it run overnight, come in the next morning, and they have this plethora of data to analyze to figure out, and they check all kinds of different parameters. We have in PlantPredict the batch functionality that allows you to create batch predictions, and you can vary your DC-AC ratio or ground coverage ratio or azimuth. Some of the key parameters that people like to vary, but through the API, you can vary anything. You have full access to the entire model, so you can do whatever. And this company is a real leader in the industry, and I think that they're doing really good work, and I think that they're a force to be reckoned with in the industry. I'm not naming any names, but they know who they are. They're a really good group, and they've taken the API capabilities to a whole nother level. And so I hope at some point that I'm able to get them on a webinar to share a little bit of what they're doing, because like I said, they're running 10,000 predictions a month, and it's all around every project they look at. They completely optimize through the tool, and they figure out what are the parameters that are going to move the needle on this project. And then they know that as they go forward into their proposal generation. And so it's pretty powerful stuff. And so when you factor that in, the batch capability, it's way more than 75% faster, because you're scripting that out. So it's totally leveraging the power of our compute power that we have. And so it's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, when you start to think about hundreds of megawatts of solar array, a a fraction of a percent improvement in the output of the facility means real money
Right.
and real ROI for the developer and the financier, the asset owner. And so being able to run these optimization exercises in a time effective manner is so critical. And I would imagine that that is perhaps one of your greatest selling points right now. Cause I get that.
Yeah.
So
It,
can we,
I'll say it again. The API is one of the most powerful aspects that PlantPredict offers, but it's also not widely utilized, because you do need to have some programming expertise to take advantage of it, and a lot of developers don't have that. So we're working on that. We're trying to find ways. We have a SDK, which stands for Software Development Kit, that tries to make it a little bit easier to interact with it, but it does take a little bit of expertise to be able to take advantage of that.
let's talk about security. That's in the news a lot, right? Cybersecurity. The US government itself was hacked. Probably the largest hack ever was
Yeah.
announced last winter, last fall. And because of the election, it didn't get very much news. But talk about cloud security, because that is a major concern for developers. They don't want prying eyes on their projects, on their data. How do you go about making a very secure cloud?
Yeah, so the way that we do that is we understand what our strengths are, and then we find partners to help us in other areas. So we I'll give a shout out to Microsoft. We actually are hosted on Microsoft Azure is the platform where we are hosted at, and by going with a reputable cloud provider, and there's several of them out there, whether you're using AWS or Azure, you know, these companies are really good at securing their environments. So that helps out. First and foremost is we've got a really solid partner when it comes to where our software is hosted. It's not hosted by First Solar. You know, we don't want to be in that business. We don't want to try to secure a data center to protect this information. We outsource that. The other thing that we do is we have a really strong partner on the identity management side. So industry leader, I'm going to once again name names in this case, and we use Okta, which is kind of a really well-known name in the world of identity management, specifically around this cloud world that we live in. And they have a great product and really good company. And then we also, from a payment processing standpoint, you know, we have a partner with Stripe to handle payment processing. So we don't control your passwords. We don't control your credit card information. We have companies that are in the business of securing that data, take care of that for us. And then we have Azure secure your prediction data. You know, it's completely separate from First Solar. This is something that I've had to answer the question for years. And I hope that now that we're getting out of the development business, it's going to make things a little easier. You know, it's all on me. I have to make sure that nobody sees your data, because if we lose your trust, then the whole business is gone. So, you know, I make sure nobody at First Solar has access to your data. I make sure that nobody anywhere has access to your data. So one thing we are going to do is in 2021, where we do have a security roadmap, and we hope to have some more information around what we're doing around security audits, pen tests, and stuff like that. As that materializes, we'll be sharing more of that with our customers, and we'll also use that as a marketing opportunity. But we do have it's one nice thing about being part of a larger company is we've got a very robust cybersecurity team at First Solar, and the chief security officer is a good friend of mine, and she's been helping me as we think about security. Usually they're thinking about it as they're looking to go with a software vendor. So they're very helpful in helping me secure the environment and make sure that our customers' concerns have an adequate response, and make sure that we demonstrate how serious we take your security. So
We have a little less than 15 minutes left. We do have a hard stop at the top of the hour, so I want to encourage our viewers and listeners to get their questions in. In the last 10 minutes or so, we're going to continue to dive into some of the features. I'm going to highlight them, and then maybe David, you can prioritize. But there's, for example, you've mentioned this already, the batch predictions, the weather download, the energy storage systems features. I would love to shine a light on that. Time series capabilities, bill of materials capabilities, and map builder capabilities. We're not going to get to all of these, obviously, so I want to whet our audience's appetite. Encourage you to go to plantpredict.com, and of course they are hosting many webinars where you can get you know, a deep dive from the experts on these features. But maybe energy storage, I want to make sure we give that some time. David, how do you guys approach that?
yeah, so I mean, it came out of a necessity. You know, First Solar was one of the first companies to get a large scale. Basically, we won a PPA in Arizona with APS that was it was an RFP that was open to any technology, and there was only one solar and storage bidder in that RFP, and it was First Solar, and First Solar won it. So we were really early on into the world of utility scale solar and storage. And so just like everybody else, it was being run off of either really complex Excel models or maybe a Python script. So we saw right away that it was really important to get that into a software so that you could have it right beside your PV model. You got to have a storage model to go along with that. So we rolled out, I think it's now 3 years that we've had PV plus storage modeling capability in there. So we have a few different default dispatch algorithms in the tool. So, but we also offer this custom dispatch capability, which allows you to build out whatever dispatch you want to use. You can put it in there and pair that up against your PV generation, and then get a 8760 modeled with both your PV and your battery storage dispatch included. So it's all built in the tool. It's API accessible. Once again, we do things API first. So so that's something that is available.
And so if I'm developing a hybrid power plant with multiple generating sources, let's say wind, solar, and storage, does the tool allow me to do that?
It does not. So we are solar only. Sorry to our wind friends in this renewable world. And I think wind's a very important renewable source of energy. But it comes down to what expertise do we have? We just don't have the subject matter expertise in the world of wind. So we're really not in that business. So
we have a group coming on from NREL coming on the podcast that's developing a tool called HOPP, H-O-P-P, that is designed for hybrid power plants. So our listeners can look forward to that.
Nice.
So in the last few minutes, what other features and benefits would you like to highlight, David?
Yeah, Tim, would you be able to open up my ability to share my screen? I'd like to give the viewers just a quick sneak peek at the tool.
There you go. You should be able to share your screen now.
Excellent. All right, Tim. So this is PlantPredict. And the thing that I want to showcase for your viewers, and this is kind of an exclusive thing, we have a release coming on Thursday. So we're releasing 8.12 of PlantPredict, and we have some really cool functionality planned in that release. One of the things that I want to showcase to you and your listeners is what we refer to as a custom array. So in PlantPredict, you can see here, I'm somewhere in the middle of Texas, and I've got a power plant modeled here. It's roughly a 100 megawatt power plant, and you can see my arrays are set up with a 180-degree azimuth, so they're all pointing directly south. But one of the things you get in like Texas is their parcels of land are usually askew a little bit, and so they don't necessarily flow directly north, south, east, and west. So we built this custom array builder to help us with that. So what I'm going to do quick is I'm going to take and I'm going to get rid of a little bit of my power plant down here. And I'm going to create a custom array with what we refer to as a racking angle. So when I click on the custom array, it comes up here. And you can see we have important information, how many tables are in this array, what's our megawatt AC, what's our megawatt DC, what our DC AC ratio is. And then we have information. Right now, we only have one table size, basically the table size that we had to find out here, but we plan to give you options for, some people use partial tables with less than like the 3 strings, maybe they want 2 strings or 1 string. So we're going to build that out. This is the first release of this tool, but you can adjust your racking angle right in the tool. So you can see here, when I make that adjustment, my array changes. I can adjust how many rows are on the top. You can see that adjusts there, and then adjust my columns accordingly to get my DC-AC ratio that I'm looking for. And when I hit create, I can drop that right into the tool like that. And then I can take, and using our duplicate functionality, I can take and duplicate that and then line it up. We have a little snapping tool that helps you align this up so that you keep your row spacing the way that you need it. And from there, you can just continue to replicate really quickly and build out your layout in a way that matches your site boundary accordingly. Down the road, we're going to build this racking angle concept into the tool so that we'll actually do what we call our DC flood, is when we lay out the entire site. We'll build that out in a way that it racks accordingly. All right, I'm going to leave that. So that's the custom array builder functionality coming out on Thursday, 8.12. Another functionality that we are rolling out that I think is really cool is you saw in that view, the layout was done at the sub-array level. So basically the blocks that you saw were the arrays. And those arrays were made up with a bunch of horizontal tracker tables. So one other thing that we've gotten requests from people, they say, hey, I want to be able to see my layout with just tables defined. And we've historically not been able to do that. And this was all part of our optimizing for running in the browser and stuff like that. We have to manage memory. Well, we've kind of overcome some stuff, and we now give you the ability to create your DC as either arrays or tables. So when I switch over to create DC as tables, now when I hit the update DC capacity, we're going to lay this power plant out in a table format. So instead of seeing just the arrays, you're going to actually see where your tables are, and then you can manipulate your tables accordingly. And there it is. So here's my tracker tables laid out in here. And then that carries over into our PLP 1000, which is our layout document. You mentioned bill of materials. We'll generate a bill of material with your table count, your module count, inverters, some wiring details. We do full topographical analysis with our 3D site view. There's all kinds of amazing capabilities that we've developed over the years. I mentioned PlantDesign before. We developed our topographical tools over the course of 2 years. We were able to launch that in PlantPredict Premium in 2 months. So we're able to move really fast because of our experience and because a lot of the code's already been written. And so we're building up to financial modeling. And that's something that I want to throw out there. I mentioned optimization a few different times, and people are using the tool to do optimization. I want them to be able to do financial optimization. You don't necessarily get a better deal just by increasing your DC-AC ratio. Sometimes that DC comes at a real price. And so we have a financial model that we've already built that's very, very full-featured, very capable. We're in the process right now of rolling that out. 2021 is going to be the year of financial modeling in PlantPredict. So that's something for your viewers to look forward to. Anybody that's a subscriber, I just appreciate every subscriber, but the thing that I enjoy most about the subscribers is they get to come along the journey with us, and they get to see the functionality come out, and they can see the capabilities of the tool increase right before their very eyes. And so I'm really excited for all of our subscribers. They're really more like investors because their money is going directly into the feature creation that we do. So they're getting a chance to walk along with us and see the power of the tool as it evolves and morphs, and we're pretty excited about it.
All right, I need to make a couple of quick announcements. I want to thank you, David, for a wonderful interview, and we will look forward to your February webinar. I want to point our listeners to a couple of pages on our website. We host these live events on a monthly basis, which is at cesnrg.com/events. That's a new link. And in February, it's not on this page yet, but on February 23rd, we are hosting Sam Kalish, who is the co-author and a real scientist at Rewiring America. They have come up with a plan for cleaning the grid using existing technology by 2035. And so we're going to take a deep dive into Rewiring America. I also want to point out that you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at cesnrg.com/podcast. All of our content is here. Right now, the solar podcast interviews aren't rendering. There's a technical difficulty on the website, but here you see the clean power hours that I do weekly with John Weaver. We break down the latest solar, wind, and storage news. So check us out at cesnrg.com/podcast. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and please share it with your friends. I want to thank David Spieldenner for coming on the show today. What a treat to have you and First Solar in our midst. I want to thank you for creating PlantPredict and wish you continued success.
Oh, my pleasure, Tim. And I love what you're doing. I've become a big fan of your podcast. I'm a regular viewer. I think that you're doing really good work at getting a voice out there in a media platform that a lot of people can relate to. People like these podcasts, these little YouTube videos are fantastic. And you've had wonderful guests, and I'm just so grateful to be counted among them. That's really a treat for me, and it's been a lot of fun talking to you. You're passionate about the industry, as I am passionate about the industry, and it really shows through your show, and I'm glad to be part of it.
Well, thank you for making a plug. And if anybody has ideas for guests, we are always looking for great guests to come on the show, whether that's for a pre-recorded or a live event. So please reach out to me. I'm TG Montague on Twitter, TG Montague. And again, you can reach me and all my contact info at cesnrg.com. Thank you, David, and have a wonderful day, everybody. We're going to end the show now. Thank you.